It began with frost in the air and blood in the snow. A German officer, standing on the steps of his panzer tank near the Russian front in the winter of 1942, stared across a silent white wasteland. He lit a cigarette with trembling fingers, not from fear, but cold exhaustion, and the creeping sense that something was wrong. The Wehrmacht was supposed to be invincible, but here, on the banks of the Volga River, they weren't advancing anymore. They were dying. The Battle of Stalingrad wasn't just another clash on the Eastern Front. It was the moment Hitler's war machine met its limit and shattered. To understand why Stalingrad turned the tide, you first have to understand Hitler's obsession with it, not because of its strategic value, though it did sit on a critical route to the Caucasus oil fields. No, it was the name, Stalingrad. Hitler couldn't resist the symbolism. Conquering a city named after his nemesis would be the ultimate humiliation. But in chasing that glory, he made a fatal mistake. By the summer of 1942, German forces had pushed deep into Soviet territory. Morale was high, and Hitler believed victory was inevitable. The Luftwaffe unleashed a firestorm on Stalingrad, reducing much of the city to rubble. But that rubble became the Soviets' greatest weapon. Stalingrad turned into a hellish urban battlefield. Streets vanished under mountains of debris. Snipers hid in basements. Machine guns chattered from gutted apartment blocks, and both sides fought hand-to-hand in sewers and stairwells. The Germans called it Rattenkrieg, Rat War. And no one embodied the chaos more than Vasily Zaitsev, a Soviet sniper from the Ural Mountains. With a quiet demeanor and a deadly aim, he racked up over 200 confirmed kills in a matter of weeks. Legend has it that the Germans sent their own elite marksman, Major Erwin König, to eliminate him. What followed was a sniper duel straight out of a thriller, playing out across days in the crumbling ruins. The Soviets claimed Zaitsev won, but König's very existence is still debated. It's one of the many ghost stories born from the wreckage of Stalingrad. Meanwhile, deeper in the German high command, cracks were beginning to show. Hitler refused to allow a retreat. His orders were clear. The 6th Army would hold its position, no matter the cost. And so General Friedrich Paulus and his men dug in. But the Soviets had a trap. In November 1942, Soviet Generals Zhukov and Vasilevsky launched Operation Uranus. A massive, sweeping pincer movement. They didn't strike the city directly. Instead, they encircled it, cutting off the Germans entirely. Within days, over 300,000 Axis soldiers were trapped. Food dwindled, ammunition ran low, winter descended, and Hitler still refused to let them break out. The Germans attempted airlifts, but the supplies barely made a dent. Horses were slaughtered for food. Soldiers boiled their belts and boots. Frostbite blackened limbs. Men froze to death in their trenches. Then, in a twist that stunned the world, the Soviet forces offered Paulus a chance to surrender. He refused. Why? Because Hitler had just promoted him to Field Marshal. No German Field Marshal had ever been captured alive, and Hitler expected Paulus to either win or die. But Paulus, sick, starving, and watching his men crumble around him, made a different choice. On February 2nd, 1943, he surrendered. Over 90,000 German troops were taken prisoner. Fewer than 6,000 would ever return home. The fall of Stalingrad stunned Germany. For the first time, civilians in Berlin realized the war might not be winnable. Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, called for total war shortly after, but the damage was done. Stalingrad had proven that the Nazi war machine could bleed. The psychological shift was immense. Before Stalingrad, the Germans were on the offensive. After it, they were on the defensive, constantly retreating. It changed how the Allies planned their strategies too. Churchill and Roosevelt saw a real opportunity now. They began pouring more resources into the Soviet front, confident the Red Army could hold. But the cost was staggering. Soviet casualties at Stalingrad are estimated to be over 1 million. 1 million lives, soldiers, civilians, children. Mothers watched their sons freeze to death. Whole families starved in the ruins. Dogs ate corpses in the street. Hunger, cold, and war turned Stalingrad into a vision of hell on earth. And yet, it held. Stalingrad wasn't just a victory. It was a rebirth. A symbol of resilience, sacrifice, and raw defiance in the face of annihilation. For the Soviets, it became legend. For the Germans, it was a wound they never fully recovered from. And for the world, it was proof that even the most brutal empire can be stopped, not with grand speeches or sweeping gestures, but with grit, determination, and the will to survive. The tide had turned. The long road to Berlin had begun. And it started in the frozen rubble of a city that refused to die,